The mining belt was a quiet place in space. It was full of rocks, dust, and machines that worked all the time. Far from Earth, people lived and worked there to collect metal and other important things for building. It was not exciting. It was not a place of war. The humans there were not soldiers. They were workers. They came from different countries on Earth and stayed in the outpost for many months. They just wanted to do their jobs and go home when their work was done. The outpost floated between rocks and stars, silent and peaceful. It was not very big, just enough to hold about 60 people. Most of them worked with machines, fixed tools, and kept the station running. There were no big weapons. There were no defense systems. It was not a place anyone expected trouble. But something dark was moving in space. The Zorvani Empire was powerful and feared across the galaxy. They had strong ships and a cold heart. They ruled many star systems with force. They did not believe in peace. They believed in control. They wanted other species to fear them. They wanted silence wherever they walked. And when they saw the human outpost near the mining belt, they saw an easy chance to make a point. One day the sky near the outpost turned red. It was not from the sun. It was the glow of Zorvani warships. The workers looked out the windows. They saw 3 black ships with red lines glowing across their sides. These ships were sharp, large, and fast. There was no warning, no message. The humans tried to send signals to Earth. Nothing worked. The radios went quiet. The screens went black. Then the Zorvani landed. Soldiers in silver armor stepped out. They looked tall and cold with black masks and bright red eyes in their helmets. They did not speak. They did not explain. They walked straight into the outpost and began taking people. Screams echoed in the halls. People held up their hands, trying to show they were not a threat. Others backed away, hopping to hide. It didn't matter. 10 people were taken by force. No one knew why those 10 were picked. Some had only arrived days ago. Others had been working there for years. They were not soldiers. They had no weapons. They were people with families, dreams, and homes far away. But the Zorvani didn't care. They grabbed the 10, pulled them onto their ship, and left. The ship rose into space. The red glow faded, and the rest of the outpost was left in shock. People cried, people shook. People tried to call for help again. They checked the system for answers. But the Zorvani had erased all signals. It was as if nothing had happened, except for the 10 empty bunks, except for the tools that would never be used again. Hours later, across the galaxy, screens turned on. These screens were part of the Zorvani broadcast. It reached many planets and space stations. What showed on the screen shocked everyone. The 10 humans were standing on a cold metal platform. Their hands were tied. Their heads were low. Behind them stood Zorvani guards, and in front of them was a tall figure in black robes. The voice on the screen was cold and proud. It told the galaxy that these 10 humans had broken the law. It said they had entered Zorvani space and taken things that did not belong to them. But none of it was true. The outpost was far from Zorvani borders. The humans had not crossed any lines. They were working on Earth's side of space. The voice did not care about truth. The voice called humans weak. It said they were primitive and unfit for space. The 10 people stood in silence. They were not allowed to speak. Their names were not given. No court was shown. No proof was offered. The Zorvani only wanted to show their power. Then the camera zoomed in. One by one, the humans were executed. It was quiet, it was fast, it was cruel. And it was shown live. All across the galaxy, people watched. Some turned away, others stared in horror. Some Zorvani watchers cheered. They believed this made their empire strong. They thought fear made peace. But for many others, something changed. A line had been crossed. On Earth, the video arrived quickly. People were busy with work, school, and life when the broadcast appeared. At first, many thought it was a mistake. Then they saw the truth. News stations showed the footage. Families gathered around screens in shock. Many cried, others sat in silence. The pain was heavy. No one knew who the 10 people were. Their names were not given. Their families had not been told. But that didn't matter. The people were human. They were part of Earth. And now they were gone. Across cities and towns, people lit candles. They placed flowers at parks. They wrote messages and made pictures of the 10. On space stations, workers stopped for a moment of silence. On ships, captains lowered flags. On the moon base, a banner was hung that said, "We remember the 10." The Zorvani sent another message. It was short and proud. They said they would do it again if Earth did not learn its place. They warned Earth not to speak back. They believed they had won. They thought Earth would stay quiet. But Earth did not scream. It did not beg. It did not rush to war. Earth listened. Leaders met in quiet rooms. Families held each other closer. Teachers talked to their students about loss and courage. Soldiers trained harder. Engineers worked late into the night. Across the planet, people changed. The 10 had been taken in silence. But they would not be forgotten in silence. On the edge of space, something new began. Plans were made. Blueprints were drawn. Secrets were passed between trusted hands. The name Blackstar was spoken in whispers. It was not just a ship. It was an idea, a promise, a line in the stars that said, "Never again." While the Zorvani laughed and celebrated, Earth remained still. That stillness was not fear. It was focus. It was the sound of minds thinking and hearts burning. It was the beginning of something the Zorvani could not understand. The galaxy had seen the 10 die, but soon it would see what happens when you hurt the wrong species. Earth was not full of rage. It was full of resolve. It was not looking for revenge. It was preparing for justice. One act had changed everything. And the silence that followed was not weakness. It was the silence before the storm. It was the silence of the USS Blackstar. The galaxy had seen 10 humans taken away by the Zorvani Empire. The images of their last moments had been shown across the stars. Many people watched the terrible video. Some were shocked, others cried, but only a few knew who the 10 really were. At first, they were just 10 nameless faces on a screen, but soon the world would learn more. Each of the 10 had a story. Each of them mattered. They were not just workers. They were sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, and friends. They were real people who had been living normal lives. Some had big dreams. Others had small goals. But all of them had one thing in common: they were loved. the 10 was named Eli. He was only 22. He had grown up in a quiet town near the ocean. As a boy, Eli loved to take apart old radios and fix broken toys. He was curious and kind. His mother said he had hands like a builder and a heart like a poet. When he got older, he trained to be a machine tech. He wanted to help repair space tools and send supplies to Earth. The mining outpost was his first real job. He had just finished his second week when the Zorvani came. He had promised to call his little sister on her birthday. He never got the chance. Another was Anya. She was 31 and had worked in space for years. She was strong, smart, and calm under pressure. She was known for helping new workers feel safe. Anya didn't speak much, but people trusted her. She had a photo of her twin brothers taped above her bed in the outpost. Her family said she was the protector, always looking out for others. She once saved a ship from losing power by fixing a broken fuse in seconds. The others called her the Spark. She died without even a goodbye. Then there was Matteo. He was 35 and a father of 2. His kids lived on Mars Station 1. He often sent them messages with silly faces and space jokes. Matteo had worked hard to provide a better life for his family. He took extra shifts. He saved every credit. He had planned to surprise his children by coming home early for their school concert. His wife, Leela, said he always kept his promises, but this time he couldn't. Another name was Zuri. She was only 20. Her dream was to become a starship pilot. She had grown up watching ships fly across the sky. Her room back on Earth was covered with pictures of rockets. Zuri had passed all her tests early and begged to join a real mission. She finally got her chance and was sent to the outpost as part of her training. She sent a message home every day. Her parents said she was full of fire. That fire was stolen by the Zorvani. One of the oldest was Jamal. He was 59 and close to retirement. He had worked in deep space longer than most people had been alive. He had seen stars no one had named yet. He had fixed machines no one remembered building. He was tired but proud. He had planned to spend his last few months helping the new workers. They respected him. They called him Uncle Jamal because he always shared advice and snacks. He had a laugh that filled the halls. Now his voice was gone. Among the 10 was also May, a science officer who loved math and music. She used to hum quietly while working with numbers. She kept her notes neat and always explained things simply to others. Her best friend, Kira, said May had a brain that solved problems like a song. She had made a model of the outpost out of small stones and glue just for fun. She never got to finish it. Then there was Leo. He had come from a farming village. He was strong, quiet, and had never been in space before this job. He wanted to save money so he could help build schools back home. He missed the sky full of stars and the fields full of crops. He carried a small photo of his grandfather in his pocket. His last message was about how proud he was to be helping Earth from so far away. Carmen was another. She was 38 and known for her laughter. Even when the machines broke down or the food was bad, she found something funny to say. She had 3 sisters, and they joked she was the loud one. Carmen was always kind to others, even when she was tired. Her last recorded act was helping a new worker who was scared of spacewalks. She held their hand the whole time. Another name was Yusuf. He had a quiet voice and a big heart. He used to fix broken computers and liked reading old paper books. On the outpost, he often stayed late to make sure everything was safe. His favorite book was about peace among the stars. He believed that even in space, kindness could grow. That dream ended the moment the Zorvani took him. The last of the 10 was Ava. She was only 19. This was her first time off Earth. She had written in her journal about the stars looking like tiny holes in a blanket. She had planned to study art after her work ended. She loved painting, and her bunk wall had small drawings taped up, sunsets, ships, and trees. One picture showed Earth, glowing blue, with the words, "I'll be home soon." All 10 had stories, and all 10 had someone who missed them. On Earth, the news spread quickly. At first, the families didn't even know their loved ones were gone. The Zorvani never gave names, but the people who worked at the outpost remembered. They spoke to the media. They showed photos. They gave the names. One by one, the world learned who had been taken. The pain grew deeper. Now the 10 were not just faces. They were people with hopes, with plans, with names that echoed in every human heart. Poems were written. Songs were sung. Schools had quiet times to honor them. Some cities built small statues with their names carved in stone. Others named parks, ships, or even stars after them. The families met with leaders. They cried together. They shared stories. Some held hands. Others brought candles. One mother carried her son's notebook full of doodles. A father brought a broken toy his daughter had fixed when she was small. Every item, every memory became a treasure too heavy to hold. But something else began to grow. It was not just sadness. It was unity. Across nations, people stood together. People who had never met felt connected. They said, "Those were our people." From farms to cities, from oceans to deserts, humans remembered the 10. Their pictures hung on doors, screens, and walls. Children asked about them. Teachers told their stories in class. Writers called them the 10 stars. They became symbols, not of weakness but of strength. Because what the Zorvani did not understand was this: when you hurt one human, you touch a family. When you hurt 10, you awaken a planet. The Zorvani thought they could scare Earth, but instead they lit a fire. Not a fire of war, a fire of purpose. People worked harder, soldiers trained longer, engineers stayed up at night, leaders met in hidden rooms, ships were prepared, codes were written, plans were drawn. Across Earth, the 10 were remembered not just with tears, but with action. And above it all, floating in secret space, was a dark ship that held a quiet power. The USS Blackstar. It carried no flag. It made no sound. It was not made for show. It was made for moments like this. Moments when Earth needed to speak not with words, but with strength. The 10 were gone, but their stories would move galaxies. They were loved. They were missed. And soon they would be avenged, not with hate, but with justice that could not be ignored. After the 10 humans were taken and executed by the Zorvani Empire, Earth did not respond with loud threats or angry messages. There were no battles. No missiles flew across space. At first, it seemed like Earth was doing nothing. Some people thought Earth had accepted the loss, but this was not true. The world had not forgotten. The people were not quiet because they were weak. They were quiet because they were preparing. The pain from the loss did not fade. It lived in every heart. The images of the 10 never left the screens. Every school, every city, and every space station remembered. People held onto the names and faces of those who had been lost. The sadness was deep, but something else had started to grow in its place. It was not hate. It was not rage. It was something colder, something sharper. It was focus. The first strange thing happened near a nebula far from Earth. A small Zorvani scout ship went missing. It had been flying near a trade path, scanning for new space routes. One moment it was sending data. The next moment it was gone. No alarms, no signs of trouble, just silence. The Zorvani commanders believed it was a system problem. They didn't worry. Then a mining station owned by the Empire shut down. It had been running perfectly for years. It sent materials to Zorvani ships across nearby star systems. One day the lights flickered, then everything stopped. The workers couldn't open doors, the machines froze. When a help team arrived, they found no damage, nothing had exploded. No one had fired a shot, but the power core had been changed. Quietly, carefully. The station would take months to repair. Still, the Zorvani leaders laughed. They believed these were just small accidents. They thought the humans were too far behind to be a problem. But deep down, some of their officers began to feel nervous. The patterns didn't feel random. The places being hit were not chosen by chance. Each one had a connection to the Zorvani units involved in the execution of the 10. Another week passed. A transport ship vanished. It had been carrying food, medicine, and tools. No distress signal was sent. No black box was recovered. The ship's route had been safe for years. Now it was a mystery. The Zorvani grew annoyed. They blamed pirates. They sent patrols to search. They found nothing. Then the lights on a major Zorvani trading hub flickered. The hub connected many routes. Dozens of ships passed through every hour. But now the systems would freeze at odd times. Ship schedules were delayed. Navigation computers had to be rebooted. The station's leaders replaced software, changed codes, and tested equipment. Still, the problem continued. No one saw the humans behind it. They worked in silence. They used shadows. They didn't leave a mark. They didn't make speeches or send warnings. Their goal was not to hurt the innocent. Their goal was to shake the enemy without being seen. On a planet ruled by the Zorvani, water purifiers stopped working. For 3 days, the city had to ration clean water. On another moon, cargo locks wouldn't open. Food supplies sat inside untouched. People started to panic. The Zorvani leaders blamed machine errors, but the engineers said nothing was broken. Something had been changed. Something small but powerful. Far from these places, on hidden bases and quiet stations, human teams worked together. They were trained in silence. They moved with care. They never said their names out loud. They knew the names of the 10. That was enough. They did not speak of revenge. They spoke of balance. They wanted the Zorvani to understand what it felt like to lose control. Ships were tracked, codes were cracked, paths were followed. The humans didn't need huge armies. They needed skill. They needed teamwork. They needed patience. And they had all three. Soon, the Zorvani noticed another pattern. The stations and ships being touched were all linked to the generals and officers who had signed the death orders for the 10. Every location had been involved in some part of that terrible event. It was clear now. This was not chance. Earth was answering, but it was not shouting. It was whispering, and those whispers were cutting deep. The Zorvani called emergency meetings. They ordered more guards. They searched every system, but they could not find who was doing this. The humans had left no footprints, only silence. The same kind of silence the Zorvani had given when they took the 10. Back on Earth, the world watched quietly. The leaders did not speak on public screens. The media had no details. Families of the 10 were protected, but people knew something had changed. Children drew stars with 10 lights. Students wrote poems about justice. Veterans stood straighter when they saw the news of Zorvani troubles. The world did not cheer. The world remembered. Then came the whispers across the stars. Alien traders spoke of ghost ships. They said they saw human crafts without lights moving through asteroid fields. Some said they saw flashes of light before systems failed. Others told stories of strange messages playing through radio waves, soft voices reading the names of the 10. The galaxy listened, and some began to wonder if Earth had more power than anyone believed. Zorvani businesses began losing time and money. Cargo was late, orders were missed, computer systems glitched. The public started asking questions. Some citizens were angry, others were afraid. The leaders of the empire said everything was under control, but deep inside they knew it was. They had expected humans to cry. They had expected fear. They had expected surrender. What they got was quiet action. Earth was not attacking cities. Earth was not burning homes. Earth was making a point, and the point was clear: if you take from us, we will find you. The Zorvani had always believed in fear. They thought fear made others stay quiet, but now they were feeling it themselves, and they didn't know how to stop it. One by one, they lost small things, but those small things added up. They lost power for minutes. They lost data for hours. They lost trust for days. And each time, Earth said nothing. The humans behind it never asked for anything. They didn't demand gold or planets. They didn't call for surrender. They didn't want war. They just wanted the galaxy to know, we are watching. It was the beginning of something bigger. It was the start of a new kind of response. Not with anger, not with noise, but with quiet, careful moves. One step at a time. The world had lost 10 people, and with each silent action, the memory of those 10 grew brighter. They were not just gone. They were the light that guided a new path. A path that made the Zorvani look over their shoulders. A path that made the galaxy stop laughing. The message was not spoken, but everyone could hear it. Earth is not weak. Earth is not blind. Earth is not afraid. And Earth remembers. At first, the Zorvani Empire was not afraid. When the first scout ship went missing, they said it was bad luck. When the mining station stopped working, they blamed the old machines. When the trade routes had problems, they thought it was just a glitch in the system. Their leaders told the public not to worry. They said the empire was strong and everything was under control. But soon it became clear that this was not true. More ships went silent. More machines failed without reason. More workers reported strange power outages and computer errors. No one saw an attacker. No one heard any alarms. Yet damage was being done. Important places were being hit, and it was happening again and again. Zorvani leaders sat in their command rooms staring at screens. Red warning lights blinked. Messages from officers filled their tables. Reports from every part of the empire said the same thing. Systems were not working right, but no one could explain why. Every day more problems appeared. Power systems went dark. Engines stopped working. Communications were lost. The trouble wasn't loud, it was quiet, but it kept growing. One high commander named Zelvor started to see a pattern. He studied the reports carefully. At first, they seemed random. A missing ship here, a broken station there. But after looking closer, he saw something strange. The places that were being hit were not chosen by chance. They were connected. Many of them had played a part in the capture or transport of the 10 humans who were killed. Some of the ships that vanished had carried the Zorvani soldiers who were part of the execution team. Some of the stations that broke down had sent supplies to the prison ship. Even the traders who had cheered during the broadcast were now having trouble moving their goods. It was not a mistake. It was a message. Commander Zelvor called for a meeting. He told other generals what he had found. At first, they laughed. They said humans were too simple to plan something so detailed. They said Earth did not have the power to fight the Empire. But Zelvor did not laugh. He had seen the human face during war before. He had studied their past. He knew that when humans were hurt, they did not forget. A few of the other commanders began to worry too. They looked at the damage reports. They noticed that none of the attacks had left behind evidence. Nothing was broken in a normal way. Things were simply changed. Codes rewritten. Systems quietly taken over. It was like someone had been inside the system, pulling strings. But who? And how? They didn't know. The Zorvani were used to fighting with power. They had big ships and strong weapons. They had fast fighters and big armies. But this was not a normal war. This was something new, something clever, and something that made them feel cold inside. They tried to track the attacks. They sent their best spies and hackers. They searched every ship, station, and satellite. They listened to space waves and watched for strange signals, but they found nothing. It was like the humans were ghosts. They came, they changed something, and they left without a sound. Now the leaders started to get nervous. They ordered more guards on all stations. They told ships to travel in groups. They set up warning systems. But still, the problems came. The Empire could not stop the damage. Every time they fixed one thing, two more went wrong. Behind closed doors, the Zorvani Council began to fight. Some said they should strike Earth now before the humans grew stronger. Others said that would only make things worse. One minister asked, "If we strike, can we stop what is already happening?" The room went quiet. No one answered. Because deep inside they knew the truth. The humans had already started something they could not stop. They had not dropped bombs or started battles, but they had made the Empire shake. With each small move they had shown that Earth was not weak, that Earth was not afraid, that Earth was watching and acting. People across the empire began to notice. Traders lost money. Workers could not send supplies. Families waited for news from ships that never returned. The public started to ask questions. Whispers filled the cities. Fear spread in the streets. Even Zorvani citizens who once laughed at Earth were now worried. They said, "Something is happening, something dark, something silent." And all of this made the leaders even more afraid. The Zorvani had ruled with strength. They had used fear to stay in power. Now, they were the ones looking over their shoulders. They were the ones checking every light and screen. They were the ones jumping at every unknown signal. Commander Zelvor continued to study the patterns. He knew what this was. It was not revenge. It was justice. It was the answer to what had been done to the 10 humans. The Empire had tried to send a message by killing 10. But Earth was sending a message back without killing anyone. Just by showing what could be taken, what could be touched, what could be changed. And that scared them even more. Earth was not trying to destroy the Empire. Earth was teaching them a lesson. That cruelty would not go unseen. That silence did not mean weakness. That humans may be quiet, but they are never helpless. Zelvor sent a warning to the Grand Council. He told them they had made a mistake. He said they had awakened something they could not understand. The council did not like his words. They told him to be silent. They said Earth would break under pressure. But Zelvor knew better. He remembered Earth's history. He had read about how humans had fought great wars on their own planet and still survived. He had seen how humans helped each other even when they had nothing. He had studied how humans united in hard times. He feared what they could become when truly tested. He was right to be afraid. Because even now more systems were failing. The Empire's computers were showing more errors. Maps were changing. Locked files were being opened. Safe places were no longer safe. Messages were being sent from unknown sources, short, quiet messages that simply listed the names of the 10. The same 10 names, over and over. The Zorvani could not stop the signal. And it was playing everywhere. That's when the fear became real. The leaders of the Empire finally admitted that Earth was behind it. They didn't say it in public, but they knew. They had pushed too far. They had hurt people who should not have been hurt. And now, they were being shown what it meant to face a planet that remembered its dead. More guards were added to control buildings. More ships were sent to defend space paths. But nothing worked. The humans were not fighting in the open. They were already inside. Inside the systems. Inside the data. Inside the mind of the Empire. And the Empire was starting to crack. While the Zorvani Empire grew more afraid each day, Earth remained quiet. On the surface, life looked normal. People still went to work. Children still went to school. Ships still flew between stations. But deep under the surface, something powerful was happening. Earth was not ignoring the attacks. Earth was not forgetting the 10. Earth was getting ready. There were no big announcements. No leader stood in front of cameras to make loud promises. Instead, a quiet plan began. A plan made not by one person but by many. In secret places deep under the oceans, hidden under mountains, and far out in space, leaders met. They spoke softly. They moved carefully. Every step was planned. Every word was chosen. This was not a plan for war. This was a plan for justice. The people in these meetings were not all generals. They were not just soldiers. Many of them were engineers, scientists, teachers, and thinkers. They came from different countries. They spoke different languages, but they were all human, and they all remembered the 10. They sat around long tables looking at maps of space, lists of names, and streams of data. They watched videos from the outpost, photos from the mining belt, and the final broadcast that had shown the 10 being taken. Each face was burned into their memory. Each moment filled their hearts with a heavy silence. There were no arguments in the room. Everyone agreed. What the Zorvani did was wrong. The question now was, what will we do next? One leader, an older woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, stood up. She spoke in a voice full of calm power. She said, "We do not answer cruelty with more cruelty. We answer it with something greater: truth, courage, and strength. But we do not wait, we prepare." And they did. Across Earth, work began. Old programs were reopened. Hidden labs were reactivated. Secret tools were pulled from dark places. Teams were built with the best and brightest. Each person was chosen for their mind, their skill, and their heart. No one in these rooms asked for reward. They came to serve something larger than themselves. One room worked on signals, ways to send messages across space without being seen. Another worked on ship designs, shapes that could slip through shadows and remain unseen. A third room worked on defense, building quiet tools that could stop attacks before they started. These were not tools to destroy planets. These were tools to protect peace, to stop evil without hurting the innocent. In orbit around the moon, a station went dark. On paper, it was closed for repairs, but in truth, it became the center of the plan. There, the minds of Earth came together. They worked day and night building something new, a ship like none before, a ship that could fly without sound, hide without light, and move without leaving a trail. The name was chosen with care. They called it USS Blackstar. It was not just a ship. It was a promise. The Blackstar was not built for war. It was built for protection. It was made to reach places no other ship could go. It was made to watch, listen, and act when needed. It had no flashing lights or giant guns, but inside it held the future of Earth's defense. The outside of the ship was blacker than space. It absorbed light. It made no noise. It moved like a shadow across the stars. Inside, it held tools for hacking systems, blocking signals, and sending warnings. It could shut down a fleet without firing a shot. It could pass through enemy lines without being seen. It was not a threat. It was a guardian. The crew of the Blackstar was chosen with great care. Each person had lost someone. Each person understood the mission. They were not there to seek revenge. They were there to stop more pain. They trained in silence. They practiced in the dark. They knew how to move without leaving a trace. Back on Earth, the plan continued to grow. Leaders met with families of the 10. They listened. They promised to never forget. They promised to act with honor. The families asked for no blood. They asked for no fire. They only asked for truth, and a promise that no one else would suffer like their loved ones had. In secret chambers, a second team worked on the legal path. They gathered proof. They wrote reports. They found facts. The goal was not just to stop the Zorvani, it was to show the galaxy what had happened. The truth had to be seen. The truth had to speak louder than lies. Another group worked with Earth's allies. Not all species feared the Zorvani. Some were ready to help. Quiet messages were sent to other planets. Messages that said, "We are not asking for war. We are asking for justice. Stand with us." And some replied with a single word, "Yes." Even artists joined the plan. Painters, writers, and singers created works to honor the 10. One child drew a picture of 10 stars in the sky, each one glowing brighter than the rest. That picture was placed in the heart of the Blackstar. Every crew member touched it before taking their place on the ship. Back on the Zorvani side, nothing seemed wrong, but that was the plan. Earth did not want to be seen. Not yet. Let the enemy feel safe. Let them believe Earth had stayed quiet. Let them believe the worst was over. In truth, Earth was waiting for the right time. One night on a quiet hill outside a small city, a group of leaders stood together. They looked up at the sky. The stars were clear. The air was still. No one spoke. Then the older woman from before said, "We are ready. Let them feel what we felt, not with fire, but with truth. Let our silence be louder than their cruelty." And so the plan began. The Blackstar launched in secret. No one on Earth saw it go. No one in the stars noticed its trail. It moved through space like a whisper, and where it passed, systems failed. Ships stopped. Truth returned, all without a shot being fired. The plan was working. The Zorvani had used fear. Earth was using focus. They had used pain. Earth was using purpose. They had taken lives. Earth was taking nothing but power away from evil hands. This was Earth's answer. Not war. Not revenge. A plan built on memory, courage, and unity. And the galaxy was about to learn what humans could do, not when they were angry, but when they were determined. The USS Blackstar moved like a shadow. It did not glow. It did not hum. It did not send messages. It simply drifted through space unseen by any eyes, silent to every ear. It was Earth's answer to cruelty, a ship built not for war but for peace through strength. It held no pride. It made no threats. It simply did its work. The Zorvani Empire had no idea what was coming. They still believed Earth was quiet. They thought the trouble was over. They believed humans had gone back to their small lives. But the truth was very different. The truth was moving across the stars, closer every day. The first strike came without a sound. It was not a blast. It was not an explosion. It was a command, one line of code sent at the right time to the right place. A fuel station deep in Zorvani space stopped working. Lights flickered, screens froze, robots stopped moving. The station did not blow up. No one was hurt, but no ships could refuel. No one could move forward. Traffic built up. Tempers rose, and Earth said nothing. A day later, on a mining moon, workers found that their machines no longer listened. The drills were frozen. The loaders would not carry. Tools beeped with strange errors. The team tried everything: new wires, new batteries, new codes. Nothing helped. For hours they were stuck. Then, right before the night shift, the machines turned back on. No damage, no changes, just silence. It happened again on another base. This time it was a military post. A large ship was preparing to launch. Its weapons were ready, its systems were strong. But when the captain gave the order to take off, nothing happened. Not one light blinked. Not one engine fired. The control panel was blank. No buttons worked. The ship just sat there, useless. Inside, the crew waited, unsure what to do. All across the Zorvani Empire, quiet attacks began. Nothing was destroyed. Nothing burned. But things failed again and again. Doors would not open. Screens would not show maps. Drones refused to fly. No one could stop it. No one could even prove what was wrong. The best engineers were called in. They looked confused. They said the systems were clean. No viruses, no hacks, but nothing worked the way it should. And still, Earth said nothing. No warning. No message. Just action. The crew of the USS Blackstar stayed hidden. They did not wear bright uniforms. They did not speak out loud unless needed. They used hand signs. They used whispers. They watched screens full of blinking lights, tracking every system they touched. They had trained for this. They were not here to fight. They were here to remind the Zorvani what they had done, and to show what humans could do when pushed too far. On one large cargo station, something strange happened. A storage bay full of rare metals vanished from the records. The metals were still there. The guards could see them, but no computer could find them. Without data, no one could move the items. No one could buy or sell. The money stopped. People began to argue. Blame spread like fire, but the humans had done nothing to the items. They had only hidden them in the system, a trick to show control. Elsewhere, air support towers went silent for 3 minutes during busy hours. In those minutes, ships circled helplessly, unsure where to land. No crashes happened, but the fear was strong. Messages were sent. Questions were asked. No answers came. Then everything started again like nothing had ever happened. People began to talk. In the streets, in homes, in schools, whispers grew louder. Something is going on, they said. Someone is behind this. Some blamed pirates. Others said it was a new kind of storm. But those who had watched the execution of the 10 humans remembered. They felt a chill. They knew deep down this was Earth. Still, Earth made no noise. They let the work speak. And their work was clear. We are not here to destroy you. We are here to stop you. A month after the first strike, one of the top officers in the Zorvani Navy tried to send an urgent message to her home base. She had seen too many failures. She had lost too many ships. But when she typed her warning into the system, she found something strange. The keyboard worked. The screen lit up. But her message turned into something else: 10 names. The names of the 10 humans. One after another. No matter what she typed, the names appeared. She stood frozen, staring at the screen. These were the same names shown during the public execution. Now they were back, unwelcome and unstoppable. She pulled the power cable. The screen went dark. But when she restarted the system, the names returned. They stayed for 1 full hour. Then, without a trace, they disappeared. The officer did not sleep that night. Neither did her crew. Back in Earth's hidden stations, the leaders watched carefully. They did not celebrate. They did not smile. This was not a game. This was not revenge. This was a mission to stop harm before more people were lost. The plan was working, but it had to stay quiet. Loud actions bring fear. Quiet actions bring respect. And respect was what Earth wanted. Not control. Not praise. Just respect and peace. The strikes continued, always gentle, always sharp. A satellite moved 1 degree off course. A shield system paused during a test. A fleet schedule vanished from the calendar. Nothing dangerous, nothing deadly, but each step sent the same message. We can reach you. We do not want war, we want truth. We want safety. We want you to stop. At one communication tower, a worker opened a drawer to find a small paper note inside. Zorvani towers did not use paper. They only used digital tools, but the paper was real. On it, only 3 words. We remember them. No name, no logo, just a memory. The empire grew tense. Meetings ran late. Leaders shouted more. They tried to calm the public. They promised safety. But even they did not feel safe, because nothing they tried could stop the quiet hand that moved across their systems. That hand was human, and it was steady. Back on the USS Blackstar, the crew worked without rest. Every move was tested. Every strike was double-checked. They never hit innocent places. They never touched civilian homes or schools. They only went after power. They only touched systems linked to harm. They followed a rule: do no more than needed, but do not hold back when justice calls. One night, while orbiting a gas giant, the crew received a message from a small Zorvani merchant ship. The captain was not a soldier. He was a traitor. His voice was tired. He said, "I do not support my leaders. I did not vote for the attack on your people, but I feel the change in space. It is colder now. Please let us live in peace." The message ended with no reply. The Blackstar did not answer, but the crew listened. They remembered. And that was what mattered. The strikes would stop someday. But not yet. Not until the Zorvani saw the full picture. Not until they understood the cost of silence. Not until the names of the 10 were remembered, not as victims, but as the spark that woke a planet. Across the stars, ships slowed down, stations became careful, orders were checked twice. The Zorvani were learning. They were beginning to understand. Earth would not destroy them. Earth would not take their planets. But Earth would stand. And no empire, no matter how large, could shake that truth.